Hey guys, what's up? So, I'm sorry if there's background noise. I have a fan blowing over there because it's summer and it's hot as balls in my bedroom, so... Excuse me. So, I decided since, it's basically midweek, and I haven't really watched anything interesting that I haven't reviewed, because I would make this Flick of the Week episode on, like, Flesh for Frankenstein or Blood for Dracula. The problem is I already reviewed those, and I don't want to make a video about something I've already reviewed when I've already made my opinion on it clear. So, I figured that I would do one on a movie that I watched kinda recently that I bought, and I at first was thinking about reviewing, but considered I wouldn't, just 'cause. And this week's Flick of the Week is Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. I have the Scream Factory Blu-ray because I bought it because I didn't own it, and let me just say this. It's a Clive Barker movie. Now you might be thinking, well, last week's Flick of the Week was Rawhead Rex, and that's based on Clive Barker's short story Rawhead Rex. And this movie is one of Clive Barker's last movies. He hasn't directed a movie. He hasn't written or directed a movie since. Well, he directed like 2 more, but they didn't hit theaters or anything like that. And it seems like most of the time when Clive Barker made a movie based on his own short stories, which is all he did, I'm pretty sure. But when he made a movie based on his short stories, it usually turns out, if he makes it with the help of a major studio, it usually ends up getting absolutely butchered, and then it gets mediocre reviews, and it basically falls into obscurity until someone eventually releases it. When I say that, I'm of course talking about Nightbreed and this film as well, so... I've already made my opinion on Nightbreed clear. It's probably one of my favorite Clive Barker movies. So is Hellraiser. I mean, I think Hellraiser and Nightbreed have an even tie on that. But I think Hellraiser and Nightbreed are about even, honestly. I really, really like them both. I mean, one definitely has a lot darker story than the other, and one's a lot more violent than the other. But one is also a lot more, somewhat whimsical, and a lot more kind of like darkly whimsical, and less for like someone who's looking for a straight up, like, really dark fantasy horror film. It's more for people that are looking for a fantasy horror film that isn't ultra dark, and that's also very, very original and creative. So they both have their they both have their kind of pros and cons. Now, Lord of Illusions, I'm gonna say this right now, it's probably my least favorite Clive Barker movie. When I say Clive Barker movie, I mean movie directed by him. And out of the movies I've seen that he's directed, Lord of Illusions is... I mean, I still gave it like a 9 out of 10 on IMDb. I still really liked it, and I'm still glad that I bought it. I just don't think I'll watch it multiple times like I have Nightbreed or any of the Hellraiser movies. I don't know why, though. This movie is about a private detective. Well, actually, I should rewind a bit and get this story down first. So, the movie is about it involves a cult of these people who worship this kind of Charles Manson-like character, and a lot of people have actually compared him to Charles Manson. And the Manson and the cult as the Manson family, because they live out in the desert, they're very secluded, and they believe that their leader is a literal god. but he can actually perform literal magic, levitating, you know, juggling fire, all kinds of stuff like actual magic. And one day, three previous members of the cult escape, and then they show up and they kill the cult leader Nix and bury him so deep nobody will ever find him. That changes now. Now we skip ahead like 13 years later, and we meet our main character, Harry D'Amour, and he is a private detective, and he goes out to Los Angeles to investigate this guy who who is believed to have committed some kind of identity fraud or insurance fraud. Either way, the guy is in some trouble, so he goes out there to investigate and ends up coming across a member of the cult who helped kill Nix 13 years ago, who is in danger. And through all this, it eventually gets to the point that you are introduced to Swan, another surviving member of the cult, and so on and so forth, and it gets deeper, and then the film goes deeper into the rabbit hole. Now, this movie is it's really good. I'm not gonna lie. It's actually really, really cool, and I would highly just recommend it right off the bat. It's, as I said before, it's not Clive's best work. He's definitely done better, especially film-wise. But I don't know. Like, the acting in the film, the acting is solid. The writing is solid. Everything in this film really holds together. I would like to also mention that I watched the director's cut of the film, which is 2 hours long, versus the theatrical cut, which is only 109 minutes long. So there's a bit of a difference between the two. And as Clive Barker said with Nightbreed, he believes that his director's cut is the best version of the film, and the director's cut didn't get an official release until now, and until December of last year, which this is like a pretty recent Scream Factory release. I mean, it's not their most recent, but still, shit, I mean, I don't know what to say about it. The effects in the movie are good. What they did for some of the visual effects really isn't that great. Like, some of the digital effects are kind of crappy looking, but considering this is a film from the 90s, like 95, I can kind of forgive it. The film definitely has a nice atmosphere and music. It definitely creates a very kind of dark world and fantasy, and has very like dark fantasy elements and stuff like that. But if I were to have a big negative towards this film, is that it's not as creative as stuff like as Raw. It's not as, well, no, I wouldn't say it's about as it's more creative than Rawhead Rex. I'll say that, but it's not as creative as Hellraiser. It's not as imaginative as Nightbreed. It's not as darkly whimsical as Nightbreed. It's not as, like dark deep within the recesses of human psychology, like levels of dark that Hellraiser can get to. It sits somewhere between the two, and that's where I have a problem with it, because going in, I mean, just based on this absolutely awesome cover art that Scream Factory made for the film, I expected something like very dark and a little bit, a little bit whimsical, but like something in the vein of something more like Hellraiser, and I didn't get that, so I was disappointed. Again, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie, it's just a little disappointing. I'd say if you're going to see this movie, just remember that this film isn't Nightbreed. It's not Nightbreed, it's not Hellraiser, it's not, darkly whimsical like Nightbreed, or absolutely just terrifyingly dark like Hellraiser. It's somewhere in between, and that's really the only advice I can give if you're going to watch the movie. The only other advice I could give is, if you're going to watch it, I'd say watch the director's cut. I mean, I haven't watched the theatrical version, and I don't think I will, mainly because, if I hear a director say that there's a certain version of a film, certain cut of their film that they consider to be the best version, then I usually only watch that version. I mean, I might eventually get around to watching the theatrical cut, but I don't think I will ever. But all in all, Lord of Illusions is a really, really solid flick. It's just that I couldn't, really, really get into it like I could with Nightbreed or Hellraiser. There's just something about it that I couldn't, really get into, really deeply. I wanted to. I really, really wanted to get into this film. I just couldn't. But is that a bad thing? No. I mean, I still absolutely adore this film. I still really, really like this movie. I'm just not into it to the point that, I'd go out and, buy merchandise for it. Or I'm not a big enough fan to the point that, I would want, if I were to choose, one of my copies of any Clive Barker movie to have Barker himself sign, I wouldn't choose Lord of Illusions. I would probably choose something like Nightbreed. There's just something about the film that makes me not like it as much as his others. But that's just me. I still really highly recommend it. And if this is one of the Clive Barker films you've neglected seeing, because the plot doesn't sound interesting or anything like that. I mean, even I'll be honest, the plot didn't sound that interesting to me. The only reason I saw it is because I knew it was a Clive Barker film, and I wanted to see, what else he could serve up along with, greats like Nightbreed and fucking Hellraiser. And I got Lord of Illusions, a pretty solid flick. Even Quentin Tarantino said that this movie is creepy to the extreme. No other filmmaker gets under your skin the way Clive Barker does. So from what I can tell, this is probably Quentin Tarantino's favorite Clive Barker movie. Sadly, it's not my favorite. Now, I'm gonna go probably edit this video and realize that I made a lot of mistakes in talking about this movie. Just know that I recommend it. That's it, I guess.